Arnaz, it is really great to be Zooming with you and into Palm Springs, one of my all-time favourite places.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be in Australia for a minute.
Look, fascinating fact, Lucy. You made your TV debut in 1951 on I Love Lucy, but you weren't seen because you were still a bump in your mum's tummy. And of course, we're talking the fabulous Lucille Ball. It was a pilot episode that actually didn't make it to air until many, many years later. Is that right?
The actual pilot, not just the first episode. That's correct.
Yeah,
yes, it was a pilot that sold the show, and it was stuck under a bed of somebody's bed. My father gave it to the clown, his friend, the clown Pepito. And years after he died, his wife found it and said, "Is this worth anything?" And I went, "Yes, don't just give it away. Make sure they pay you for that."
Now, when that series was picked up, of course, the first episode was reshot, by which point you'd been born. And 73 years on, Lucy, the laughs, the impeccable timing, and that great writing remains absolutely undimmed.
That's true. Yeah, it's classic, beautifully constructed, magical pairing of people and creatives. And they have done a lot of great shows since then, but nothing quite like that. And I don't think they can ever recreate it either. They should just let it be and put it up there in the stars.
I was reading an interview with you and you said something quite fascinating. Of course, every interview you do, invariably people say, what is the magic? Why do we still love those shows? And you said it was to do with love.
And forgiveness. It's truly a show about unconditional love. And that didn't occur to me till years later. I was in my 50s when I suddenly went, wait, we were trying to raise money for the Lucy Desi Center, actually, in Jamestown, New York. And, it houses beautiful artifacts and clothing and yada, yada, yada. And I was on the board of directors for a while, and they takes money to keep that stuff together. And so they said, we want you to go out to Hollywood and we'll have these big parties and you're going to raise money. And I went, wait, there's AIDS and starving children. And I cannot ask people to show up at a party and ask for money to keep my mother's old gowns looking nice, no. And so that ensued this 12-hour retreat where we try to decide what are we doing here at the Lucy Desi Center. And long story short, it came down to saying, well, why is this show or their career even worth anything anyway? Why do we care? Well, it's funny, it's funny. Okay, why do we care about funny? Well, it's necessary. It's, and is it healing? Is it this, and what was that show really about? And all of a sudden we started to tear it apart and deconstruct it, as we would say today,
Mm-hmm.
And we realized that it's a show about love. It's a show, we think the reason people love that show so much, even though they don't even realize it, because yes, the fun and the laughter is what hooks you and sails you through it. But in your heart, in your soul, you're feeling like somebody loves you even when you screw up terribly. And there's always going to be somebody there that goes, oh, it's okay. It's okay. I love you, honey. So it's about unconditional love. And so we made the Lucy Desi Center about the healing power of love and laughter. And now they finally did what we suggested they do 20 years ago, which is to not just honor I Love Lucy and Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, but the whole idea of humor in the world. And now they have the first ever National Comedy Center based in Jamestown, New York, which is an incredible, interactive, space-age technology tribute to laughter and humor in the universe. And my mother would be so proud of that right now. And just the idea of laughing, that belly laugh is so healthy. And when you lay on top of it, the idea that there was all this love and forgiveness and laughter. What do we need? That's it. We just concentrate on that. Be good, right?
And you think about your mum and dad, and you think about, for instance, I Love Lucy, such a trailblazer. I mean, we talk about the invention of that 3-camera setup, to your mum and dad owning a studio. But also the way in which your mum's pregnancy was dealt with when she was expecting Desi Jr., how that was handled on the show.
1953, you could not show a pregnant woman on television, believe it or not. And now, as my mother and dad would say, they even show you how they got that way. So yeah, that was kind of amazing. But my daughter, Kate Luckinbill, she discovered something recently that I had never even thought of, that, everybody talks to her about. They always talk about, and she was the first, pregnant woman on television and blah, 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 blah. And it's true, she was. That's just the fact. But she said, how about the idea that she wanted to have a child so badly? And when she finally got pregnant with me, she had already got this show. Like, what are we going to do? We have this show. I'll do the pilot. And then she got pregnant again. She had both of these children and still continued to work at a time when women were not doing that at all. They were hardly working, much less working and, going away from their families, and two parents working. Nobody thinks about how hard that was for her to actually do that,
Oh, and I mean, you think about 1953 and your mum is pregnant with your brother, Desi Jr., and gives birth on television to little Ricky. And I mean, the facts and figures of that are quite astounding. 70% of Americans with a television tuned in to watch that episode. It was bigger than President Eisenhower's televised inauguration.
No, it's all true. My father's book, a book by Desi Arnaz, soon to be reissued, tells this story from beginning to end, just for the whole idea of how they got the idea to work together, and then how hard it was to create a way for her to work in front of an audience on film so they could send the film cross country. It's a fascinating story. Everybody thinks, oh, he just created this wonderful mechanism and he's an inventor. I went, no, he's not an inventor. He was a husband trying to stay with his wife and work. And they said, no, you can't have it on film. No, you can't have an audience, and he went, well, there must be a way. Come on, gotta be a way. And he started to dig and ask questions. And every time they said no, he goes, okay, but why? And I just love that thing never would have happened if my father hadn't been as tenacious and inventive in a way in his head as to how to get around problems. I guess that's what happens when you come from a revolution and you start with nothing. You have to figure out ways to make things work again.
Your mum and your dad really together were a force of nature, weren't they? In so many ways, on so many levels.
Yeah, the chemistry of everybody it took to put that show together. It wouldn't have been the same without the partner she had to play off of, I don't think. They wouldn't have been the same without Bob and Madeline writing it and Jess Oppenheimer producing it, and Vivian Vance and Bill Frawley being their cohorts. It was all kind of just perfect. It was a real perfect storm that was a good thing, a positive perfect storm,
Yes. Let's go back to what life was like for you and your brother living in this home, growing up with famous parents. I mean, what was that like growing up in that household?
Growing up in our house was like any other kid today growing up in a house where both people are working. That's really what it was like, because they weren't super celebs. They didn't think about stardom and big homes and fancy cars and yada yada. They were too busy in a pioneer industry trying to figure out how to do what they were doing, first of all. And doing television was brand new. And so their hours were super long because everything took longer until they figured out, how to do it easily. So we were home with my grandmother a lot and a wonderful nanny who raised us, Willie Mae. And that's all I can say, is that really my memories of it are, where are they? It wasn't like, oh, it was fabulous. They were so popular and we had all this wonderful, it wasn't like that at all. I mean, it wasn't terrible. I didn't have any abuse, but I missed my folks and I wouldn't want to go back to that. If I could go back again, I would say, you guys keep I Love Lucy, give me my parents, I mean, that would be better, because then I today would be a better parent to my kids. My husband and I, between the two of us, have 5 kids between us, and 3 of our own, and he had 2 before I married him. And it was a lot, and you have to just rely on what you've seen as a child in order to parent. And if you haven't seen it, you don't know how to mimic it. So I'm playing catch up most of my life,
But you were surrounded by lots of music, and I love the stories you tell of your dad singing you to sleep or coming into your room and playing an instrument. So there was that didn't happen in a lot of kids' homes.
I remember listening to my father's music a lot as a child. He didn't really have a whole lot of time to come into my room and play guitar for me or things like that. He barely got home before I was asleep. But I was able to watch him do what he did, even if it was only on television sometimes. And as I got a little bit older and I had my own career, and he was older and he wasn't working that hard anymore, he was still doing music. He was still playing wonderful music and making music with bands around. And that was a huge inspiration for me. We also had a lot of friends of ours that were singers, songwriters, the Sammy Kahns and the Jimmy Duranys and the Burt Bacharachs and, you know, Mel Tormes and those people, just being in this stable of talent was very moving. But yes, I was surrounded by music from the time I was a kid, and it seeped in. It's always been a part of my soul. Nothing moves me like music. Nothing.
Definitely in the DNA, as they say. Look, Lucy, a very great friend of mine, now sadly passed away, Carole Cook. Absolutely
Carol, yes. Great
adored your
fun.
mum, as you know, so much so that your mum was Carole's maid of honor at her wedding to Tommy Troop. And she'd tell wonderful stories of the fabulous parties at your mum's place and Jack Benny running in and out and all of that wonderful kind of showbiz chaos. Do you have memories of those occasions as well?
Not the same that she did because she was older and I was very young. And so I was usually again in bed, you know, but once in a while, my parents would throw a party for somebody's pregnancy or something. They didn't do a lot of that. We had maybe two that I can remember my whole life. But you know what, Carole Cook, one of the funniest people ever born on the face of the earth. And she did live with us for 6 months or more. And she became like a cousin, you know, like Aunt Carol or something to me. And her telling of all of this stuff, because not only did she live with us, but she worked in the Desi Lou Review, and she was a guest star on all of the series for like forever. And was truly one of our greatest friends. And to this, you know, till last year when she died, 2 years ago now, I guess. She and I were great pals, and I couldn't have done the Lucie Desi a whole movie documentary without her. Her stories were priceless, and her honesty. You know, I went to her because I knew she would tell the truth, but in a compassionate way, and that's what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for a tribute piece in that documentary, and I wasn't looking to trash anybody. I just wanted to walk this fine line of finding out who my parents really were. And I think because of people like Carole Cook and her good friend Marcella Rabwin and, you know, various people who people really don't know that well, I think it's probably one of the reasons we won an Emmy. Is because we went to the heart of things and we had compassion for people's problems. We showed the warts and the wonderfulness that you knew, you know. And yeah, I'm very proud of that. And Carole was responsible for a lot of our success for that.
Yes, a most extraordinary woman who really too played great tribute to your father, who in some respects is kind of the unsung hero
Mm-hmm.
of that whole Lucy Desi dynamic, because people focus on Lucille Ball, not realizing that he was a man with incredible vision, astonishing talent, and just this great intuition for what would work. I read his memoir, Lucy, and he was very candid about their sometimes stormy marriage. But interesting too that when they finally did divorce, they remained friendly, didn't they? Right up until the end. They had great respect
Mm-hmm.
for one another, despite what might have gone on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they couldn't stay married for a whole bunch of reasons, as you said. And his passions ran rampant. You know, he was great at everything, too good. And but they needed to separate in order to appreciate each
Mm.
other, I think. And even though they were married to other people for over 20 years apiece, they remained friends. She called him all the time for advice about running the studio and business things. He continued to send red and white carnations on every birthday and anniversary that they had together. I mean, you don't see that very often. And we were always together after Larry and I had our children, and they came to my mother's house to see the grandchildren or whatever. It was a very friendly, wonderful relationship right until they both passed.
Mm.
Can't ask for more than that. So.
And your mum married the comedian Gary Morton, very funny in his own right. And you said that they too had a very special bond, a really deep, genuine love.
I think so. Gary was very good for my mother, as she had said. He's good for me. You know, he makes me laugh. He didn't come with any baggage. He didn't have stuff she had to put up with, really. He liked to play golf every day, maybe, and fixed old cars, you know, and that was sort of. But he was funny. He was. He was funny for us as a kids, you know, like he was our stepfather. And in the beginning, I didn't want him around at all. Like, get out of here. Who are you? Get out of here. She married him too quick. You know, what
Mm.
is that all about? Where's my dad? But then I realized he could be fun and he cared and he was there. which was a plus. He showed up, which was nice. It was like Gary was the stepfather who had to take me to all these events that my dad couldn't be at or my mother couldn't be at. And I don't know, he got a bad rap after he passed away. A lot of people didn't say very nice things about Gary. And I think it's because he kind of kept some other people away from my mother. But trust me, he didn't keep anybody away from my mom that my mom didn't want kept away. It's just like, you be the bad guy. Do you know what I mean? You be the
Yes.
no man. No,
Yep.
we're not going out to dinner. Sorry, she's not available. There's my mother on the other side of the room going, tell him I'm not available. Trust me, she ran the show.
Oh, I
Wasn't
have
his fault.
absolutely no doubt about that. Now, your dad left us in 1986 and your mum, sadly, 3 years later. Do you feel them around you, Lucy? Do you feel that energy? Do you sometimes feel as though you have an angel on your shoulder that could be your mum and your dad or both?
It's almost impossible to know if I'm feeling their energy or if they just haven't left the energy field, because there's still so much of them here. There's constantly shows and movies and fans and stuff. I used to jokingly say, you can't kill them. They're too big. And so I don't know if it's all of that or if they really are the little yellow butterflies that pass by my window every day. I don't know, but I feel that way about a lot of people who have passed that I really cared about. They come into my mind on a regular basis. And if you ask any great psychics, they'll say, oh, that's them saying hi. You don't just think of that all by yourself. Or a dream where it seems really real and you get visited and you have a conversation with these people and they always look so healthy and happy and calm. And I think, oh, that was a visit. That was a real visit with them telling me everything's cool. I wish they'd come back right now and tell me everything's cool. We'd like to hear that.
A bit of reassurance would be a good
PSA.
thing from wise minds.
Hi, this is Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. We'd just like to tell you that everything's fine. Just don't worry about it.
Carole reckons that she sometimes would feel your mum's energy around her. Hard not to, I suppose, especially if you tuned into those sorts of things. And she told me about the family had her urn moved from Los Angeles to Jamestown in New York, where she was born, and that she felt that your mum was so much happier back in her birthplace.
Yeah, I had to get permission from the rest of the family. I said, do you think we could just move my mother from the silly old, forest lawn place where she's in a wall? Like, it's ugly and hard and I don't like it. And everybody went, yeah, she's not there anyway. She's in the wind. She's in the breeze. She's with you. Yeah. Good. So I dug her out of the wall with my grandmother, Dee Dee, her mother, and we shipped them back to Jamestown. You have to ship them regular mail, by the way. I thought maybe I could. Right? Yeah, I thought you could do a FedEx version, but you can't. You have to do it regular mail. There's a legal thing about that. Imagine. But yes, and then we went back to Jamestown and we used the family plot, the hunt ball plot that's there, and then we dug a special place, and she has her own little heart ball, headstone, and she's there with my grandmother and then my Uncle Fred, my Aunt Zoe, and they're all there together with the rest of our ancestors. So, and it's very pretty there. There are trees and it changes seasons and there are lilacs and dogwood and all the things that she loved. So if she's not happy, it's okay. The fans are thrilled. They get to walk by and see all that. I know she's not in the ground, so I don't really care. But, it just made more sense.
Oh, Lucy, the world fell in love with you and your brother on Here's Lucy as Kim and Craig Carter, 6 seasons. Gee, how much fun must that have been? I had 6 years on that show. Desi only chose to be there for 2 years. Anyone often made stupid movies. Why would anybody want to do that? But I was there the full 6 seasons and I had such a great education in the Here's Lucy show. First of all, it was funny and there were great scripts and amazing guest stars, and all that. Like every week we had somebody incredible on the show with us. But as somebody who fell in love with musicals early on and loved musical theater, we did music all the time. Like if you go back, look through those series episodes, each season we maybe did anywhere from 5 to 8 full-fledged musical production numbers. And in 1 week of rehearsal, that's incredible when you think about it, all the stuff we had to learn and then the lines and the thing. And so I had a chance to sing duets with
amazing people, you know, the Frankie Avalons of the world and the Carol Burnett's and the Wayne Newtons and Liberace and dancing. Who does a soft shoe with Liberace? I'm just asking, who does that? You know, I learned how to do a lot of stuff. I learned how to ride dressage so that Wayne Newton and I could do a song outdoors. Learned how to do an authentic hula. So it was going to theater boot camp. And I was thrilled 6 years of that. I was able to go and then audition for regional theaters and summer stock. And that started me back in the theater where I started in high school. And I never looked back after that. Did a couple of TV shows or pilots, and then it's fine, but it's not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in live theater with music, you know, great composers and wonderful scripts, playing characters, and where the curtain goes up and it's all on you.
I mean, you think about Here's Lucy and those great guest stars, as you just said, Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, the biggest stars in the world. And that wonderful episode where the ring goes on and it can't be gotten off, that Krupp diamond, that must have been like showbiz Disneyland around that set.
It's the one, well, not the one show. Every once in a while, there'd be a show that the kids weren't in or I wasn't in. Because sometimes there were too many guest stars and there's just not enough lines for everybody. It's only a half-hour show. So they would write somebody out. Sometimes Gail Gordon would be written out, but you know, once in a while, that was one show I was written out of. So, but I have a funny story about it because I wasn't working that week. However, I was dating my boyfriend, Phil Vandervoort at the time, who ended up being my first husband. And during that week, I got engaged. And as I would normally do, I would run to my mom and tell her good stuff that happens like that. And I wasn't working that week. So Phil and I got in a car and drove down to Desilu Studios, and we ran into the set and, you know, and they were rehearsing and they were all at the table reading lines and stuff. I didn't care. I was like, hey, guess what? Phil and I just got engaged. And everybody goes, oh my God, that's so great. And there's Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton sitting right there. I was like, I don't care who they are. You know, I said, I got engaged. And Elizabeth goes, oh, darling, it's wonderful. Let me see the ring. And I put my hand out, and it's this little thing, you know, it's like a little diamond thing with a little teeny weeny emerald in the middle. And I went, look, see? And she grabs it with the hand with that big ring on it. And I'm looking, oh. And she looked at me and she said, it's absolutely beautiful. And I was like, thank you. And she said, and you clean it with toothpaste. I clean all my jewelry with toothpaste. Just remember that sparkles like crazy. It's like, so that's what I learned from Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor.
You mentioned Gail Gordon, of course, Harry of the Mooney Employment Agency, as I recall it. Was he just hilarious?
He was one of the nicest men that ever walked the face of the earth. One of the most phenomenal performers. I mean, he could do anything, and they made him do pretty much anything too. But one of the kindest human beings. I learned a lot from Gail about how to be a team player, how to be part of that family and get your work done, come prepared, you know, how to treat other people, especially when the other people weren't doing their jobs well. That's what you learn when you're in school. You watch the pros, and my mother, great pros, you know, they really could handle stuff. And, but there truly aren't very many Gail Gordons in the world. Jimmy Durante, I mentioned him before, but he was another one of those people who just seemed perfect, like never got angry with anybody, just a genuine, open-hearted human, you know? And I was friendly with Gail all his life. I adored that man. I really did.
You referenced before the late, great Vivian Vance and Bill William Frawley. You think about their on-screen chemistry, it was absolutely dynamic, but for years, stories have gone around that they didn't exactly get on behind the scenes. Is there anything to read into that?
It really wasn't as bad as some people say. I mean, I was very small at the time, but we had the same crew for the Lucy show, the same crew for Here's Lucy that worked with all of them. I heard all the stories. And Vivian, who was my mentor, she was on the Lucy show with my mother. And then I did a lot of episodes of the Lucy show when I was small. And then she was a guest star practically every year on the Here's Lucy show. So I had many, many conversations with her. It's Vivian that started me in the theater. She's the one that said, go back, you know, and start doing plays on your hiatuses. Don't stay in television and get typecast and a show like this for the rest of your life. Oh, and she was right. You know, if it wasn't for her telling me that, I don't know if I would have done that. And I maybe wouldn't have the career I have now. But she would tell me stories, and she never said anything that bad about Bill Frawley. You know, their whole thing was she didn't want to be cast as the wife of a fat old bald guy. He was a lot older than her. She was kind of pretty, you know, like boom pretty in those days. And it was a shock that she was going to play this frumpy woman married to him. And she, you know, didn't suffer fools easily. She would say something about it, and she did. And he got wind of the fact that she said it. And then that's why he didn't like her,
Yep.
because she called him an old fart or something, you know.
Yes. 1980, and this must have been an incredible wow moment for you, Lucy. The Jazz Singer movie with Neil Diamond. I think that was his movie debut. The fabulous Sir Laurence Olivier. What kind of pinch yourself moment was working with Larry Olivier?
Yes. Pinch yourself is the right way to say it. First of all, I wish I had had more scenes with the gentleman, because I would have loved to have tested out any kind of acting ability that I had against his. What a thrill that would have been. In fact, my scene was, "How do you do, Cantor Rabinovich?" And he looked at me, tore his collar and said, "I have no son," and left. And that was my one scene with Laurence Olivier. But no fool me, I made sure that I found out every single day that he was working on the set, and I made a point to be there to watch and observe what he did. I was there all the time, and I had my little 35mm camera with me, and I was taking lots and lots of pictures and watching. You know what I remember the most about Larry Olivier, and he insisted we call him Larry, not Sir Laurence, and not Mr. or not Larry, call me Larry, was that here's the arguably the greatest actor ever. Everybody called him that. And he would say to our wonderful director, Dick Fleischer, what would you like me to do, dear boy? Tell me how you'd like me to play this. He would defer to the director, who was like, hello, you're Laurence Olivier. You know, maybe I'll just watch what you do. But Dick was no, you know, he didn't cower to that. He was like, okay, here's how we're going to do this. And Olivier just did what he was told to do, brought his A game, whatever it was. And he was very ill at the time. He was fighting cancer, one of his major bouts. He got a little bit better after the movie, and then he got much worse later. But he was in a lot of pain, and he still stepped up to the plate. He did his scenes brilliantly. And then he went back to his dressing room, and he would just sit like this. He was so sick. And I remember I walked by the dressing room one day, and he had his hand up to his head like that. And I had my camera, you know, and I was like, I'm sorry. Like I was going to take a picture, but then I saw the mood he was in. He said, oh no, dear girl. No, it's fine. And he perked up so I could take a little picture of him, you know, just a lovely, lovely man. And when we did the scene in the audience where I was sitting with him, listening to Neil's big concert, we had to sit there for the better part of the day, because reaction shots on us. And then, you know, we had the long shot, listening to that great music and whatnot. So I had a chance finally to talk to him a little bit. And I think I said something like, you know, you've been doing this a long time. And what made you choose this film? I'm pretty sure at this point in your life, you could do anything or nothing and be very happy. And he said, oh no, dear girl, I am of an age, and I mean, I'm paraphrasing now, but I'm of an age, and his son was sitting right next to him. And he said, I have to provide for my family. I'm not well. I'll take all the work I can get. So he was basically just working, work, you know, ching, put it away, because he knew he was not long for the world. And I just loved that. I loved that. It kind of broke my heart, you know, but he was brave and just really responsible. You know, that's what you do.
It must have been a masterclass just in every moment with him.
It told, well, yes, and not enough. I mean, I would have killed for him to have been in a movie with a better script, you know, so that he could really show me what he could do. Because this was like, for him, he could do the script in his sleep, you know. I mean, it was easy for him. It was really easy. It was not so easy for Mr. Diamond. I mean, he had never done an acting job in his life. So that was weird. You got Olivier on one side and Neil Diamond on the other, who's never acted before. And it's like, I get to watch the dynamics of that, you know. And me, who's sort of in the middle, I've only done like one other film, but I did a lot of theater. But Neil was not an actor at all, not theater, not film, not nothing, you know. He was terrified every single day. But Richard Fleischer was a fantastic director, and he always helped Neil figure out how to do what he had to do. Sometimes Neil would get it, sometimes not. Sometimes things would change, sometimes it would be the same for the 37th take. But, you know, hey, he's not that guy. He's a fabulous musician. That's not his job.
You think of your extraordinary career, I mean, the movies, Down to You with Henry Winkler and Freddie Prinze Jr., I think, Wild Seven with Richard Roundtree, who left us not that long ago, and also television too, Lucy, working with greats like Angela Lansbury in Murder, She Wrote. Now, how good was that?
Both Larry and I have been on Murder, She Wrote episodes, and you know, it's what you did back in the day when I was on television and early in the 80s and whatnot. I mean, those shows were huge, and TV's not like that really that much anymore. There aren't shows where you go on and you do a guest role and it means a whole lot, especially not sort of comedy little shows like Murder, She Wrote. It's almost embarrassing now to say, oh yeah, I was on Murder, She Wrote, but it wasn't to be there because you were working with pros again. And Angela has always just been the classiest dame, one of the finest actresses. Larry will tell you the same thing. Approaches her script like it was, you know, a Tony Award winning part, and find the reality, find the truth in it. And there's humor, but humor comes if you play everything straight, the way it's written. If it's written funny and you play it straight, it'll be funny. You don't play things funny. You know, you play the reality of the situation. And I, you know, I've known her a long time. We're buddies in the theater too, and I've been a huge fan. So to work with her was great. I was being told to mimic, you know, Cagney and Lacey. That was our instructions for our parts. We weren't really able to come in and be Lucie Arnaz or be another character. I had to. So we wanted to be exactly like Cagney and Lacey. And in those days, I went, oh, okay. So I did, you know. But it was fun. I mean, I'm not embarrassed that I did it. It was a fun show.
You're one of America's great musical theatre stars, and you think about where you've worked in the world, from the West End in London to Broadway, on and off Broadway, and you've dazzled on that stage for decades. Is there a favourite musical of yours, a musical that you'd love to do again, or one that you just have the fondest memories of working in?
I wish you could do them again. You know, Seesaw, the first real great big part I ever had in the first national tour of a wonderful Broadway show called Seesaw that was directed and choreographed by Michael Bennett, who created A Chorus Line the year later. And Cy Coleman music, Dorothy Fields lyrics, wonderful book based on the Two for the Seesaw, William Goldman. I love that part. And I couldn't play it anymore because I'm too old to play it now, but it was a perfect show. Kind of, Clive Barnes once said, it's a perfect musical, love of a musical, you know. And my one and only with Tommy Tune, Gershwin musical, 7 months on the road, first national tour of that with my dear friend Tommy Tune. The tap dancing alone, when I'm not really a dancer per se, but I can learn stuff, just keeping up with him was a masterclass. I got a master's degree in tap dancing by doing that show. And I don't think I could do that again on my knees, you know, but man, was I proud to have done it. I loved, you know, the experience of going to London and being in the West End and flying. We were like the little 7 Foys, you know, flying by Foy across the heads of the Drury Lane Theater. That was amazing. And in a Cameron Mackintosh multi-million-dollar musical. That was wild. But I also did Annie Get Your Gun, which is like one of the most perfect musicals ever written by Irving Berlin, and that great character of Annie Oakley. I loved that. I did Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, which is one of the newer funniest ever. David Yazbek, incredible lyrics and music on Broadway. There's so much to choose from. I've been a very lucky girl. That's why the show that I'm doing, I got the job, Songs from My Musical Past. Anyway, one of the reasons I decided to do that show was because we were thinking of what's the next show to do. And my father years ago had said, you should do, you know, a show about all the musicals you've been in, you know, do songs from all the musicals you've done and tell stories from them. And I thought it's a great idea, but I was 26 at the time. I had done 2. So I thought, it's going to be a very short show, Dad. But I started thinking about it just a few years ago. And I thought, now, not a bad idea.
Mm.
And I made a list of all the shows that I had actually forgotten, like, oh my God, be it even in high school or summer stock or whatever. And then Broadway, off Broadway, blah, 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 national tours. And I'm not even talking plays, just the musicals. And I thought, look at the musicals that I got lucky enough to be in. They were written by the Gershwins and Irving Berlin and Stephen Schwartz and David Yazbek and, oh my God. And look at the people I've gotten a chance to work with, the directors, the Mike Nichols and the Michael Bennett's and unbelievable. And the incredible people that I've shared the stage with. So that's basically why I have a show that I'm doing right now, is because I thought, I'm so lucky that I somehow stumbled on those jobs, those scripts. I haven't been in a musical that closed. I've only done 2, I guess, where I created the roles, but they had good runs, long runs. Or I've jumped into other shows that had long runs and were big hits. Been very lucky. What can I say? So grateful.
And that's the gist of I Got the Job, which is going to see you touring in a minute, but at 54 Below, and we've got the dates coming up for that. But I love this story, Lucy. You met your now husband, the hugely talented Laurence Luckinbill, 1979. You were both starring on Broadway and both in Neil Simon plays.
That's the truth. I was doing there playing our song, and he was in a Neil Simon play called Chapter 2. And we just met one afternoon through a mutual friend that I was having lunch with. And when lunch was over, I was about to leave. And she said, I said, aren't you getting up? And she said, no, I'm meeting my leading man. I just went into a play to replace somebody. And he's coming here to help me with some of the stuff I'm not, too sure of. Larry Luckinbill, do you know him? And I went, I know who he is. Yeah, I don't really know him. I think I've seen some of his work. Why don't you stay? You should stay and meet him, because he's going through a terrible divorce and he's very depressed. And I had this wonderful matinee idols group that I had put together on Broadway. Idols, IDLES, not the other way around. And we would meet on Saturdays between shows if we were alone. You couldn't bring somebody that's just a friend. You could bring someone from your company, but you had to come. It had to only, no civilians, only the theater people. And she said he could, he should invite him to join Matinee Idols because it would cheer him up. So I stayed. Okay. And he walked in, and Larry has a piece in his book, a short little piece that maybe he'll read to you if there's time, where he talks about, in his autobiography, he talks about that day and how we met. And I think I should let him tell you that, if not.
And I know, Lucy, he's right there with you. Well, Larry, it is lovely to meet you.
Thank you. Same here.
So what was your first impression of meeting Lucy?
That meeting with her that day was Cupid firing terrible thunderbolts right at my heart as I looked at this young woman who was 28, who was 45. And there was something about her that was so rising and nascent as a human being. And I had just gone through a lot of anguish, and I was feeling pretty bad about myself, but also understanding that I was at a precipice. I could either go this way or that. And here's the difference in my life became substantial immediately after meeting Lucy. But I want to read how I felt about her. She was so different from me. We were so unlike each other, yet like had somehow taken root between us. She liked me. I liked her. Cool. It would stay that way, I felt. Neither of us exhibited any need to go steady. So I asked her to dinner. One night after our shows, we went to Gallagher's Steakhouse close to both of our theaters. We talked. I don't know what was said. There was definitely something going on, though. It was odd. Usually in a boy meets girl scenario, when like occurs, a structure manifests itself. Pursuit, flight, to others, which can be manifold, catch, connect, sex. Maybe love follows and maybe not, although love is usually the first word introduced if the pursuit turns serious. That simply was not the case here. Lucy told me things about her life as if she were a traveler in a fascinating and strange land. She was making discoveries from moment to moment about life and people with a combination of delight and shock, like a young child in a bubble bath, watching each bubble float up in wondrous flight of all colors of the spectrum, only to burst in her face, getting a soapy mess all over her. She took life as a kind of pie-in-the-face joke. She was amazing. Her spirit never flagged. I could feel her genuine theatrical joy in life, raising my comic spirit from the depths. I felt lighter with her.
Oh, that's great.
That is beautiful. I mean,
Fantastic.
hardly a surprise considering you are an extraordinary writer, but also you have a vast stage and screen career. You really do. I mean, you two started together in 1982, for instance, One More Try, where you actually married on screen. But Larry, you starred in a movie that for itself is now an absolute icon, The Boys in the Band. I'm talking
Yes.
the original, because you'd start on stage in the 60s in that play, and then you did the movie with, I think it was the great William Friedkin directed that.
Billy Friedkin, yeah.
What are your memories of making a movie like that that was just so hard-hitting for the day, but you look back on it now and it's still so incredibly meaningful?
The movie, in my view, was the ignition key for the gay revolution. The play, written by a friend of mine from college, and he had written this play that no one wanted to do. He brought it to New York, and gay actors turned it down, gay directors turned it down, gay producers wanted nothing to do with it. When he asked me the big question, would you take a part in this? I said, yes, of course. It became an issue of social justice to me. And then we did the movie. You know, I was looked at as a hero because I'm a straight guy. Gosh, you really could have lost your career. I never ever thought of that. I never ever thought of money. That wasn't my idea of why I was an actor. I was an actor to search for something higher and something better for my life. At the very end of the movie, Craig, here's an interesting thing that you will not have heard. There was a big argument over the kiss. In the play, the original director, Bob Moore, decided that there would be no kiss after this terrible argument that I had with my partner, because it wasn't likely that a kiss would solve a real terrible argument between two people over their sex lives. And so when the movie came along, all of a sudden, people in Hollywood were saying, oh, there's got to be a kiss after this. And why? Because that would be the sensational end. And that would, to my partner and I, Keith Prentice, that would trash our whole relationship as far as we were concerned. So we refused to do it.
The story that you tell in the book is so good and so detailed. I mean, you can't even begin to touch it.
Yeah.
Just trying to get through it quickly here, but he talks a lot, rightly so, about Boys in the Band in Effective Memories.
Yes.
It's the one thing that everybody said, you can't do that, it'll ruin your career.
Yeah.
And it's the one thing that people bring up now as you were in the Boys in the Band.
That's it.
Groundbreaking, you know.
And that was the movie that shone a light on a taboo topic. And for the first time in any mainstream fashion, you should be mighty proud that you said yes to doing that. As you say, your book, Effective Memories, is blisteringly candid. You say, Larry, that acting basically saved your life. Just in a nutshell, what do you mean by that?
I was in a dysfunctional family. I did not know what to do with an alcoholic father and a codependent mother who put me in between the two of them. And it unmanned me. You know, my mother used to say to me, Larry, you've just got to have a chance in life, because she had not had a chance. The saving of my life was the theater itself, because I learned that I could express the emotions, the horrible emotions that I had of anger. And I had a huge temper. I could solve them in a safe way, because an actor can slide into that character through his affective memories of his own, put them in the character, and walk out safe. And the audience walks out safe.
Tell me about the time, and I know this is in the book and no doubt in vivid detail, but the time you wanted to cook something for your mother-in-law to be.
Now, don't tell the whole story, because you know that's the only reason anybody's going to buy the book, is because there's a story.
That's
All
right.
right.
We're doing a big tease here, Lucy. We know how to do
Just saying.
that.
I know.
Set it
There's
up
plenty
and then,
more
like
about
a
Lucy in the
cliffhanger,
book,
you got to
but-
buy the book.
I admired her tremendously, but the first time I met her, I decided that being a hillbilly like I was going to cook for her. I'm going to cook for Lucille Ball for dinner. And what could I cook? I could cook eggplant.
He doesn't cook at all, even today. It's 45 years later. He can't cook anything. And
Well,
to think,
wait
you
a minute.
can't really, you never really cooked. And to think, I'm giving you credit, really, to say there's a guy who doesn't know shit about cooking. And he's got Lucille Ball and Gary Morton are coming to dinner. I'm gonna coming over. I'm gonna cook.
Yeah, because
I'll cook.
I wanted Lucille Ball to know
To like you.
who I
Yes.
was.
Hamish guy, nice
I'm just
guy.
a Hamish guy, and
Regular guy.
I grew up in the country, and blah blah blah.
Then what happened?
And so I'm cooking, and I forget that I didn't get wine, and I was in an upstairs apartment. So I ran down the stairs to the liquor store across the street, and grabbed two bottles of wine, and I'm on my way back, and I turn around, and there's a big fire truck in the street, and there's smoke coming out of my door, and the fireman is getting a big axe off the truck, and he's going to tear my four walls apart. And I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "I don't know." I said, and somebody, my neighbor, stepped out with the key that I had forgotten, and the door had slammed shut. And he said, "Larry, is this your key?" He said, "You know, your eggplant was burning, so I crossed over the balcony, and your back door was open, so I went in and turned it off." So,
One of the benefits of doing boys in the band.
yes, exactly. And Lucille came up the stairs, and she started coughing because the place was full of smoke. And she said, "What the hell is going on?"
The hell's going on?
Do that.
What the hell's going on?
That's right.
Gary,
Yeah, Gary.
let's
this is
go to
Gary.
21.
And Gary came in, and to end this wonderful sequence of my meeting her, we ended up at 21 that night, the fabulous restaurant in New York, because Gary and Lucy took over, and we went there for dinner, and I wanted to put a tarp over my whole table.
Well, I got to say, speaking of being on fire, Lucy, your career remains in that very state. We've been talking about the fact that I've Got the Job is heading to 54 Below in New York, and we've got the dates on the screen now. But also, you're touring a little later across America to all sorts of very fortunate venues where you'll be performing, and your fans can see you again. Those dates are up on the screen. You must never get tired of performing, surely. It's joyous for you, I know.
I don't get to do it even enough, especially after the pandemic. There was so much was canceled. And there was 2.5 years there of just like, this is what I do. I mean, I liked having time to burn eggplant here at the house, and swim in the pool, because what else are you going to do? But I missed my creative juices were just not getting put to work. And so touring is, I love it. And this is the third time I'm taking this same show to 54 Below, which scares me a little bit, because why did they want it back? I'd do a new show. No, we sold out last 2 times. You got to do 5 nights. Oh my God. So I'm thrilled that I'm going back, and a little bit trepidatious because I hope people still want to come see it. But I'm doing that show and a couple of other different shows throughout the year. And I love it. I would do more of it if I could. We do let it, it's just not that easy anymore. After the pandemic, things closed, and it's been a little rougher rebooting.
This is a great show because it actually parallels her own growth as an actress and a singer. And Lucy is the one performer today who acts the songs, who really goes deep into them.
There must be another one.
No, there's nobody else. There's no one else who does it the way she does it.
Okay.
And I've seen it about, I don't know, 600 and so times, but I love it. And I'm going to see it again in New York. And it always makes me cry and laugh, not because I know the lady, but because of the story that she puts into it. It's a story of an actor and the story of love and the story of reaching for something higher. And that always gets me.
No.
Oh,
Good
now not
show.
only
I
that,
like
but
it.
Lucy, you have a CD which is called Live at the Purple Room too.
Yeah,
So
Lucy Live from the Purple Room, which is this show that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I did
Mhm.
this show right after the pandemic at the Purple Room. And so it was my very, very first show back after all that time. It's like, I don't know that I remember how to do any of this, you know, and we taped it and we made a CD out of it. So it is a absolute, and it's the whole show. I didn't edit anything out. We produced it ourselves. My son Joe is a music engineer. He's a producer and he's really good at it.
Mhm.
And so I gave him this raw tape with like one track and a piano thing, and he turned it into this lovely thing. It sounds pretty good. And it sounds live too, which is, I like that. It doesn't sound like it's been screwed around with, you know?
no, it's a
Live
nice
is live.
energy, isn't it? Where you're
Yeah, if
listening
you
to
want to
music
hear
like
somebody
that.
live, you want to hear them warts
You
and
do.
all. You want to hear the whole thing. And I had done another one like that when I was at the Nico with a show about all about love. And that's Lucy Live at the Feinstein's at the Nico. So I'll be doing this show in various places this year and then going back to that Feinstein's show. And then we're putting together a brand new show for starting in December that will take around the country next year called Here's to Life, Songs from a New Perspective. And I'm
Oh,
really excited about that one because it's a show that can be done by a person of a certain age where other songs you used to sing for the last 30 years suddenly like don't sit on you right anymore.
mhm.
Like, I don't really believe that. I don't want to slit my wrists if my love affair falls apart. Like, I think I can survive that. And what do I really think of the planet? And what do I want for my family, my kids? How do I look at things differently at a certain age? And there's not a plethora of music out there like that, but there's a lot. And that sounded like I'm discrediting myself, but I mean, there's enough, but there isn't more than you would think out there because people usually write about, I can't live if living is without you. I can't live anymore, you know? And I go,
Mhm.
yes, you can. So
Now,
I'm
your
writing.
beloved right next to you has written a memoir that we've been talking about. What about for you, Lucy? Do you think there's a memoir on the cards at some point in time, the definitive, right from when you're in your mum's tummy to now?
He keeps telling me there is and that I should do this.
Mhm.
I've
He's right.
I haven't had time because I am a mom and 5 kids and 3 grandkids and taking care of this fella.
Yes.
So there, just when you think you're going to have time, you don't. Who's going to? When he was writing, I was the one in here cooking dinner. You know, it's like, what's going to
10
happen?
years.
How for 10 years? Yeah. How am I going to do this? When do I find the time to do that in between everything else? But B, I kept stopping my thought process because I would go, this isn't what people want me to write about. They want to know all about my mother and my dad. And I'm not going to write a whole book about that. I've done a TV, I did a documentary. I've done forwards. I've done plenty about that already. I want to talk about life. And of course, they're my parents. And of course, it's everything I just talked to you about. What did I learn about being in the, you know, in that family?
Yeah.
There is going to be a lot of it, but it's not the whole story. So I talk myself out of it a lot of times going, I don't know if people give a shit about that other stuff I want to write about. And then sometimes if I'm in a really bad mood, I go, why am I telling anybody anything? I don't care what they think. Why am I going to share my life with these people? All they're going to do is, you know, the trolls on the internet will just say terrible things as they always do, no matter, even if put a beautiful picture of somebody up online, you know, and somebody out of 30 comments, there'll be 3 where they go, I never liked her. Or, you know, she's kind of getting a little long in the tooth. It's whatever. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to subject myself
Don't be afraid.
to all of that. Well,
Don't be afraid. You've got a great human story to tell.
there you go.
Yeah, I'm with you, Larry, on that. Honestly, we'll get a petition happening here. Forget the damn trolls. And not only
I
that,
like
but there
that.
needs to be an eggplant recipe in the book as well, I reckon.
Well, I am
I
going to
think
put out a
so.
recipe book.
I think so.
And I'm doing other books. I'm doing books of different types of things, and I'm working on that. I guess it's me getting ready to do a book, trying to figure out, even helping him promote his is kind of getting me into the book world
Yeah.
and learning about all of that. And I'm as I said, I'm republishing my father's book with some new material that hasn't been seen before. And
Right.
I'm putting out a book of my mom and dad's love letters, which I have had in my possession for 5 years. And they're just to each other during the war years and such. And I've never known what to do with them other than keep them safe. And finally I went, I think it's time. I want to make a beautiful book that you can hold in your hands and read. And it's in their own handwriting, these original envelopes and everything, but also getting it typed up on the side in case you can't read my father's chicken scratches, whatever. And I'm excited about that. That's fun, but I'm not going to go on a tour promoting it. I'm just going to put it out there and let people find it. It's not about me, and I don't want it to be, but I'm just going to let it happen. I'm just launching it,
Look, that's excellent. And how is your brother doing? Do you chat with
He's
him
great.
from time to time? Does he live
I do.
nearby?
He doesn't, well, not so nearby. He's closer than Australia. He
Everywhere is, Lucy.
Every place is. Every place is, but we're in Palm Springs, California. He's in Nevada. He's in, like Boulder City, Nevada. And so we're on our way up there, actually, the beginning of August, we're going to see him. And, I want to say something important. My brother is alive. The internet went crazy, and they keep going crazy, and they keep reposting these stupid clickbait things where they say, rest in peace, somebody, died. And they keep saying that my brother died. And people call me, oh, I'm so sorry, Lucy, to hear about what? I go, what? And he goes, that your brother passed. I went, what? And I called him. Are you dead? He goes, no. I go, good, thank God. Because I didn't think you were. Yeah, no, he's fine. He's doing great. He runs a theater in Boulder City, Nevada, a historical Boulder City theater. His wife passed away about 8 years ago. That was really hard. His best friends have all passed on from weird things in the last couple of years. He's had it rough. And but he's a trooper, and he's very funny and dear. And we keep a house that my dad built in Baja together that we share. And I love him very much. He's a hell of a good drummer and percussionist. I wish he would travel with me more often. He doesn't like to do that anymore, but I have tremendous respect for him and for his abilities. I do.
Well, can I just say it's been really, really lovely chatting with you both. Best of luck. So many things happening right now for you both and in your future. And look at you sitting there together, this gorgeous picture, 45 years on, eh?
The reason we do that is we read somewhere that when you go out the door and usually say, bye, honey, I'll see you later. Or at the most, you go, bye, honey, I'll see you later. And you go out the door. Yeah. And we read somewhere, I don't even remember where now, that it said, when you go out the door, you should kiss for at least 6 seconds. Because then, God forbid, something happens, you don't see them again. The last kiss would have been something more than
something real.
I'll see you later.
Because after 6 little seconds, it starts to get real.
It does change. It changes. A 6 second, even if it's not solid, even if it's you can't just go, mwah. It's all like, oh, I love you.
I love you too.
Oh, well, you two are amazing. Here's a kiss from me to you.
Thank you,
all
Craig.
the way across the Pacific. It's been a total joy.
I'd love to meet you sometime. This was a delightful interview. You're really good at this.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I know, what a shame we're not together. But anyway, we're here. When next time in Palm Springs, I'll look you up, eh? There you are. You're on a promise.
Let me know. All right, guys. Thank you so very much.
An absolute joy, as I say.
Thank you. And thank you, Kelly. Great job.
Thank you very much.